Cat and Moose podcast. I'm Cat.
And I'm Moose. This is a true life podcast where we explore the quirks of being human.
This meeting is being recorded.
Got it.
Got it. My therapist taught me 2 deep in and then 5 seconds out with a whistle lip like this. Okay. So 2 in and then out. 2 in and 5 out. Hey, Cat. He fell asleep.
That's a really relaxing meditative process, Moose. Hi, Moose.
Hi.
How's your day today? You look really cheery and chipper and healthy and bright.
Oh, well, I set my alarm for 6 a.m. so I could take a shower at 6:15 a.m. And I didn't do any of that. I didn't wake up at 6 a.m. I didn't take a shower. It was one of those, like, I actually woke up at like 7 after my alarm went off 4,000 times. And I was like, nope, I'm just going to try and make this head of hair work today because I only have Zooms. And so even though it wasn't my best moment, I was like, it's Thursday, which means almost Friday.
Yes, I'm so excited about that. Bring on the weekend.
You had to go out in the world today.
I did have to go out in the world today, and I, too, did not take a shower or fix my hair or anything like that. The thing that I had to go out in the world for is I was telling you last week that I started this new insulin pump Dexcom system.
Yeah.
And I had to get one of the pieces of equipment that goes with it that I have to replace every week. I had to go pick up at my pharmacy, and I've been procrastinating it. And today, like, the system was like, if you don't give me what I need, you're going to die. And I was like, okay, I gotta go. So that was after making an order for my whole team in the office on Uber Eats that also failed. So it's just like, dude.
Wait, what?
I ordered a meal. I ordered lunch for everybody in the office today, and it was supposed to arrive between 12 and 12:30. And here comes 12:30, and it never arrives. And I basically learned that the order never like properly went through. Mm-hmm. And so I'm probably going to get like 7 salads from Tzatziki's at like 10 o'clock tonight.
That's the story of my life. I did that earlier this week with dinner, and I just never put the order in. And so friend Ruthie was over, and we're all just like an hour after it's supposed to arrive. We're like, see where it is on the map. I open it, and there's my cart. That's when you just like order Chick-fil-A, and you're like, fuck it.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've said the F word on the Cat and Moose podcast.
Oh my goodness. It has been several episodes. Like, there's been no moose noises in at least 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah.
5 maybe even?
Oh my gosh. I have to tell you, I had this like work event where it was a women in radio event that happened with a client of mine that is a label outside of Nashville. And I was involved in that this week. And one of the things that they do is as soon as you land, they take you immediately to get like a pedicure or manicure of your choice.
Oh, nice.
And so since I was local, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go get a manicure. So I'm sitting with this fabulous human who I absolutely love, who works in the Delaware state is what I almost said.
Oh, is it our friend Denise?
It is Denise.
Oh, I love her so much.
Okay, I didn't realize you guys knew each other as well as you did. But anyway, we're sitting there talking, and we start like backtracking and this and that. And she reminds me that you guys adore each other. And then she told me that she has the little army man that you sent her back in the 90s on her desk.
That's so cool.
I know that you like to send people army men. And so I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you know Kat. And then all of a sudden she goes, and Moose.
Oh.
And I about crapped my britches. And for those of you like listening who are normal listeners, like you guys know us, you have the full spectrum of who we are. But, you know, a lot of our people, and Denise is not necessarily one of these, but some of them are very Christian, very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I immediately start playing back all of the things I have said on the podcast, you know, and granted, like these people know me, but you know, I'm not going to share all of my stories and all of my opinions with them, even though I love them. So I was like, and I'm getting my nails done, which by the way, don't they look fantastic?
I was just going to say, I have never in my life seen you with that color pink fingernail polish. That's amazing.
You know what? You say that every time I get a freaking manicure.
No, that's not true. It's just not true. I've just never seen that color.
It's the color I always put on my toes, and I decided to get a manicure instead, so I kept the color. So anyway, I'm sitting there. She tells me she listens, and I was like, and then I'm thinking, well, maybe she doesn't really listen. And I was like, she goes, why are you freaking out right now? And I was like, how much do you listen? And she's like, oh, one of my favorites was you and Kat. You were on some kind of ride. And so then I realized she's talking about the trauma couch.
Oh, yeah. When we were singing worship songs out in the middle of the lake.
Right. And so I was like, oh, fantastic. Like, that's been a while. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, good. Because I think it's gotten worse since then. And then I'm like, I'm just like in this like frozen state of like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know who I really am. And then she's like, oh, and then what about, and as she's naming things, like my butt cheeks just get tighter and tighter. And I'm just like, I don't, it was just a really interesting moment of all of my lives colliding.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, how did it resolve?
I mean, I don't have a choice except to keep getting my nails done. So I just kept breathing heavily next to her like this. Uh-huh. 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 I liked that episode too. But it's, anyway, all that to say, it is a very interesting thing to have this podcast that is like truth serum for both of us because we're best friends and we tell each other the truth.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's almost like, oh, well, we're just accidentally recording our conversation. And then to really recognize, like, okay, it's fine for me if strangers find our podcast. Like, fantastic. I want new friends. Mm-hmm. But to have people who have known you your whole career and then, like, you know, they've read a chapter of your life and then you're like, oh, here's 10 more chapters. And you're like, I forgot that I was sharing that with the world.
That's so funny to me. And the thing that strikes me, and I too, I feel like I would have had a similar reaction if I was still in radio promotion. Yeah. And since I'm not, all I remember about Denise is her essence. Like, I remember her being unconditional and kind, and she would always pray with me. And she was always like one of my favorite tracking phone calls to make because I was like, oh, this is a person who I feel like I can be myself around. And when I say be myself, you know, it's kind of like what you were talking about. It's like, okay, we have a relationship, you know, about a chapter of my life. And now that it's like, what is that, 25 years later, to think that she might be listening to what I have to say, I'm a little bit going, oh, thank God I'm not still in that job, because I think that would make me nervous.
Well, newsflash, I am in that job.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That like to me, I'm like, oh, why does that bother you? Denise is so sweet. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I think I can attempt to relate.
You know what? Here's the thing, though, is like there's no going back. You know, you hear people talk about, you know, when the light switch is flipped. And like, my light switch flipped when I was born. You know, as I'm sliding out of the birth canal, life is coming out of my mother's vagina.
Yeah.
And not just literal life. That's true as well. But also just, I mean, you use the word essence. I'll use it again. Like, you know, I know I'm a very certain type of flavor. You know? And I can play it where I can play my life where, and I'm getting to something good here, but I can play my life where I give you chocolate all the time because that's what I want you to like is chocolate, and chocolate is liked by everyone. But I'm like freaking cherry cordial with like friggin' truffles inside.
Yeah. Come on.
But not everyone likes truffle.
Well, and so everyone gets to choose. You know, if you don't like truffle, don't eat it. You know, and it's like, this reminds me of a conversation that I wasn't going to bring up on the podcast. So of course I have to now. It reminds me of a conversation I was having with my mom earlier this week. And I said to my mom earlier this week, one of my relatives decided, I asked if this person would be an interviewee on the Cat and Moose podcast. And this person said, I would rather pass. And it really kind of like hurt my feelings. I was like, why would you not want to do that? Like, we're so fun and all of that. And so my mom was telling me that, that's for some listeners of that specific demographic, which is in, you know, like these relatives I'm speaking of are in their 60s or close to it. And, you know, she was just saying, she was like, for this demographic, y'all are just real sexual.
That's the last thing I thought you were going to say. Oh my God. I've never been called sexual in my life. This is amazing.
Yeah. She said that y'all are real sexual, and sometimes
sexual, not sexual, sexual.
Yeah, it was sexual. Yeah, it was sexual, and it which I realized as I'm retelling this story a couple of times now, I also say sexual. Like, I don't say sexual. Like, I don't say it. Like, I say sexual, like my family does from the holler. And so, like, I got to thinking about it, and she said, you know, sometimes it's fine here and there and stuff like that. And she goes, but sometimes y'all will go on for like 12 minutes. And I was like, well, shit, you know, and sure enough, in the first 3 minutes of the podcast, you've already said vagina.
Well, I said my mother's vagina. So I feel like it was more like, it was more scientific than me talking about my own.
Right. And I edited myself from saying about 7 different things to follow that up.
Well, okay, look, we've got a new tagline. It's the Cat and Moose podcast. We're real sexual.
All of a sudden we've got like 10,000 more patrons, and like Ellen's having us on her show, and Kelly Clarkson wants to like record a song with us.
I love that Ellen and Kelly were the two that came to mind.
They're the only TV shows I've ever seen.
Well, I was thinking like Howard Stern could have us on, and like we would be so PG for someone like that. Like, I love that we're considered sexual.
The thing that I really appreciated about what my mom said is my mom says, I recognize, or no, she didn't say I recognize. She goes, I also don't think that we're exactly your demographic. She goes, I think that because we're your family, we listen. And we love you, and we love Moose, and we love producer Sarah. And so we listen. And I don't think that you are talking about things all the time that are something that a 70-year-old, you know, woman in the South wants to talk about. And I just felt like that was at least very aware of her, you know, like it wasn't really a criticism. I completely disagree.
We talk about chickens, and I know your family likes chickens. Last episode, we talked about chickens. Mm-hmm. You know what? Give me a topic that someone in your family in that age group, in that demographic, because I'm going to cover it right now.
The meteor showers.
Fantastic. I like meteor showers. Are there some coming?
No, we just went through what's called the parasids, and those happen kind of mid-August, and they're absolutely beautiful, especially if you can get out of the city where you can see flying stars better.
Gotcha. Okay, well,
that was a good conversation about meteor showers.
Well, we can totally have a conversation about it. I feel like we talk about nature and the stars, and I think talking about things that arouse us are allowed as well. Which, by the way, that's still my favorite episode, when I was like, you and Sarah were so uncomfortable. And I was like, what do you like? And you were like,
no, boundary setting happening again. Yep.
oh my God. Okay, so all of that to say, I'm wrapping up the point that there are times, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm not stuck, but I operate in somewhat of a Christian, like, what's the word? Grid, you know? I don't want to say bubble because that suggests it's bad.
Worldview, maybe?
Yeah, worldview. And so I guess that is where I'm a little nervous when I bring all of me, that I may not land right. But also, I'm going to be 43 next month, and I don't know how to hold back the truffles. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, it looks like cherry cordial. Sweet and tasty and flavorful. But, like, there's some truffles in there, and it is not for everyone. And I'm wondering at what point this is a problem for my career.
Well, I know that that's something that has concerned both of us at different points in time. And one thing that I would like to offer for you to consider is that if these people who are your constituents, clients, etc., with a quote unquote Christian worldview aren't able to accept you for who you are, I think that they're not actually living out their faith like they're supposed to.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, look at Jesus. He hung out with people that talked about sex, and he hung out with people that, you know, did naughty things, you know, like collect taxes and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's like, if these people are who they say they are and they believe what they say they believe, then they can do one of two things. They can accept you how you are, or they cannot listen. If you think you're going to be offended, then don't listen.
Yeah. And for the record, I'm not worried about Denise, but it was just like a moment where I was like, oh yeah, two worlds colliding. There it is. Which we knew when we started this podcast that, it would only be a matter of time until people we work with listen. And great. More listeners, the better.
Hey, I'm glad that the people we work with listen. Thank you to each one of you who knows us personally, who listens, whether you're a friend, a colleague, a family member, or something in between. Thank you so much for listening and for loving us because of who we are, not in spite of who we are, but because of who we are. And thank you for reminding yourself that you get to choose.
Okay, so I have to tell you some news I saw this week that I thought you would be interested in.
Okay.
Do you remember the Nirvana record, Nevermind?
Is it the one that has Smells Like Teen Spirit on it?
I think so. It's the one with the baby on the cover.
Yeah. Come as you are, as you were. Yeah.
So, anywho, the baby is now in his 30s.
Oh, wow.
And he's suing the band.
What?
Because he's saying the cover was child porn.
Oh, gosh. Really?
I just think it's the craziest thing. And it's hilarious because there's this comedian on Instagram named Jenny Johnson that I think is hilarious. And she posted an image of it. And you remember, it's the baby, and he's like floating underneath the water, and then there's like a dollar hanging in front of him.
Yeah.
And apparently, I didn't know this as I was reading the articles about it, but it was Nirvana's take on capitalism. And why can I not think of Courtney Love's ex?
Kurt Cobain?
Yeah, Kurt Cobain, the reason he wanted to do that cover is he had just seen a documentary on babies being born under, in the water. And he just thought it was fascinating. And so they thought that would be a little too much to take a photo of that. So instead they traded it for this little baby floating. But anyway, this Jenny Johnson character, she said, oh, damn, now this baby chasing the dollar completely makes sense, which I thought was hilarious. So they're suing Nirvana. The guy is suing Nirvana, which I'm thinking, I've done enough video shoots. Wouldn't they have had to have a clearance from the parent anyway?
I mean, they should have had. Yeah, absolutely. And if they didn't, that's actually on the record label. That's not on the band. So, I mean, that's going to be a suit that goes on forever and ever and ever. And like, dude, like, why must you do that? Like, why?
And it wasn't even, he was only suing. This is what I thought. It was like 3 different band members, which was odd because one of the guys he was suing wasn't even in the band at the time. But it was only $150,000 per person. So I don't know if he thought, well, that won't be much. I'll just see if they'll pay it.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. Talking about Nirvana, talking about music made me think of the girls in the office today were talking to me about the new Casey Musgraves single. Have you heard this song?
I don't think so.
It's called Star-Crossed.
Okay.
And it's produced by Ian Fitchick, who I know. And, we all have mutual colleagues and friends and stuff like that. And the people in my office were saying how they were kind of surprised at how the production was handled, and it wasn't positive or negative. It was just like, this really struck me as interesting. And we were having a full on conversation about it. And so I said, well, I have not heard this song. So let's stop and let's listen to it together. And the main line of the song basically says that we were star-crossed. And so I asked the girls, I said, what does star-crossed mean? Do you know?
No, I was going to say not at all. I can't even guess.
Well, I mean, think about it like when you say like, oh, they were star-crossed lovers.
Like maybe, some bullshit romantic thing about how, you believe there's only one person for you. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. See, that's what I thought too. I thought the connotation that it had in my mind was that, oh, star-crossed lovers, that must mean that they were like destined to be together. Like there's some sort of like divine intention, for their love or something like that. And what I learned after Becky in our office looked it up for us, star-crossed actually means exactly the opposite of that. It means it's like the universe says this is never going to work. It's like, this is a bad idea. It's like, as bad as we might want it to work, this is a really bad idea. And I was really fascinated that at almost 46 years old, that I did not know what star-crossed meant. And there's a big song that's put out by a really substantial artist that uses a terminology that I didn't even know what it meant.
It's actually pretty smart on their end. I always feel like anytime a song can be built around a metaphor, it like really connects with people. But also I think if you use new terminology or new language, that is always really, it like draws you in because you want to know what it's about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, perfect case in point is we're talking about it.
Did you like the song?
I liked the lyrics of the song. It's not something that I would choose to listen to. And I said this in the office. I said, I appreciate this song. I don't think that by choice I would go and listen to it regularly because it's just the flow of the song, like how it's produced, the kind of how the song, builds and then comes to an end. It just isn't the kind of music that I personally enjoy. So, I mean, I'm proud of her and I'm proud of it. And I hope that it does really well for her, but I don't have it on my playlist.
Yeah. Is it super country?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Can I tell you, about how my house on the block is the most embarrassing house because of my dogs?
Oh no, what happened?
Oh, you couldn't even guess. It's so bad.
Did Vincent dig under the fence?
No. And then if you saw him right now, he's passed out on the couch over here because he's a bad boy.
Oh no, what did he do?
He's also a good boy, but here's what happened. And honestly, we can't blame Vincent too much because Franklin has decided lately, even though he's lived in this house for a year and a half, that it's time to let the neighbors know that he's in charge.
Okay.
And so here's what happened. So they're allowed in the backyard off leash, clearly, because there's a fence. But when the house was being built, there was no houses behind mine. So it was just a field, and they, you know, like it just sat there for almost a year before the third set of houses started going back up. So they're used to kind of sneaking out of the garage and going and running back there, but they haven't been able to do that in months because there's houses there now and people that live there and cars that are coming down the road. Anyway, so every once in a while, like we'll let the dogs in the garage if like I'm working on a project or something, you know, we'll hook them up on leads so they can be out there. Well, the other day I was cleaning out something, camping gear or something out of my car, and Frank decided, oh, I want to come out in the garage with you, Mom. And so I was like, okay, but you got to be a good boy, because he's the only one that is really allowed off leash because he doesn't really care about. Well, so I thought. Anyway, so then he decides as well, like, I'm going to come on out here too. And I was like, okay, hold on. Let me just get you guys on a lead. And so I'm going to get the lead. Sarah's outside as well. And Frank turns the corner and sees across the street from my house, this gray house, this amazing family lives over there. And they kind of keep to themselves or whatever. But no joke, Kat, Frank and Vinny. Frank goes, whoa, and barks, and they egg each other on. And then Vinny was like, oh, are you in trouble, brother? And is like, let's kill him. The guy is getting in his vehicle in his driveway. They both go running at top speed, barking their brains out towards this guy who's trying to get in his car. His son is outside as well, and they both go running in their house as fast as they can.
Oh, no, that's the worst.
As fast as they can, and close the door. And my dog and Sarah's dog are just sitting there. At the door, barking at the door. And we're like, get back here. We're like, come on, just embarrassed as all get out.
Mortified.
We start heading across the street to get them because we're so embarrassed. And we're like, sorry. And they're both looking out the window like, is it safe to go to my car again?
It's like your dogs had like treed them. It's like your dogs.
I'm not even kidding. That's exactly what, like, I mean, had they not run as fast, and the dogs would not have done anything to them. But you don't know that. You know what I mean? Right. And so I was so pissed because I was like, what is wrong with you? And so I go above and beyond in order to make it look like I'm a good dog owner, because I hate when I'm like riding my bike and a dog is off leash and chases me or whatever. Or when I used to run, it's like the scariest thing. But to see them dart from their car in their driveway into their home.
Right.
It was the worst feeling ever, where I was like, my dogs just chased them into their home.
And so what did you do to make yourself look like the best dog owner in the world?
You just scream things. If anyone needs any advice, you just scream things like, what are you thinking? And then you act like it has never happened before, which that specific thing hadn't. But when they like bark at the fence, when they're inside the fence and people are walking by, like it's almost on auto repeat of like, Frankie, stop it. You know what I mean? Like, so you actually act like you care, but what are you going to do?
Oh, what are you going to do? I think I might have mentioned this to you a couple of episodes ago. My dog, Corey, especially, because he was in a really, really traumatic situation when he was really young, where he got attacked by a pit bull. Corey is very aggressive just towards some people. Like some people, he doesn't even care that they're there or that they're walking by or whatever. And some people, he lunges at them as if he is going to absolutely mutilate them. I mean, it's really, really, it's very embarrassing. And this lady was walking down my street a few weeks ago, and I had Corey and Belle both with me. And Corey kind of like went up to her almost like he was just going to say hi. And the way that the lady motioned to him, it was almost like an invitation of like, oh, let me come pet you, you cute little golden retriever. And so I kind of let him get a little bit close to her. And then he started barking and did that lunge thing. And the lady like got so freaked out, and she turned and she looked at me and she goes, hold him back. And I was like, I didn't know if I was more like in awe of Corey lunging at this woman, or that her voice turned into Beelzebub. I mean, it's like it literally, it was very, very scary. And I came in the house and I started crying so hard.
Aw.
I was embarrassed. Somebody was really, really, really mean to me. And if anybody's like really mean and yells at me, like it's instant waterworks. Like I am just not good at receiving that. And so it was a really bad experience. Like, what do you think triggers our dogs to make them do these crazy things?
Well, we have to remember they're wild animals. You know, like Sarah says that all the time. She's like, isn't it weird that we have wild animals that just live in the house with us? So I think just like our nature, there's going to be times where they just like freak out. And I think they're trying to be protective. Obviously, it's not okay. I don't think it's okay for dogs to chase people back into their homes. But I also think, you know, we got to give ourselves a little grace because we're doing the best we can.
Well, in line with giving grace, I'm going to do exactly the opposite of that with you. It reminds you of what you said. I think it was last episode when you talked about people who have animals who poop on the sidewalk and don't pick it up. And you said, what is wrong with you people? Jesus is watching.
Yeah, well, that's true, too.
So Jesus was watching when all that happened. What do you think his take is?
Probably laughing his ass off. I feel like Jesus is like an Enneagram 9.
Definitely a 2.
Well, that's not true because he doesn't have codependency.
Well, codependency would be that of an unhealthy 2.
Oh, so he's a perfect 2.
He's a healthy 2.
He's a helper. But what about all of his, well, I guess he could have gone to 8, so that you might be right when he got angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it funny that he got angry, but that isn't a sin? Is anger a sin?
It's not a sin. It's what you do with the anger that can be sinful. It's not the
That's
emotion
like
itself.
saying like, it's not the sinner, it's the sin. Okay, can we talk about, have you watched Pray Away on Netflix?
No, and I won't watch it.
So I don't recommend you watching it.
Looky there.
Oh my gosh. Anyone who has any religious trauma, like even if you don't have someone that's close to LGBTQ issues, this movie is intense. So if you haven't seen it advertised, it's called Pray Away on Netflix. And it follows the stories of, and we don't have to go into this because it is very heavy, but the stories of people who've gone through conversion therapy and the organization Exodus International that, basically walked people through conversion therapy. And it's so freaking interesting to me because it interviews all these people who are leaders who are now out and gay, you know? And the piece that just stood out to me last night, I've seen it twice now. Don't ask. I like a lot of pain in my life. I rewatched it with a friend, and there's a part in there where it says it's a former leader talking, and they said the religious right knew that we needed a science or psychological backing to us saying that people who are homosexual could change. If you don't know what conversion therapy, that's what it is for as many as like 10 years, people have chosen or have been encouraged to basically try and change that they're from gay to straight. And so 700,000 people have been through conversion therapy in the United States under Exodus International. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
But anyway, the piece that got me was they were saying they needed some sort of they needed basically a psychologist to raise their hand and say, this is possible. And do you know that back in the 70s and 80s, there were over 500 counselors or psychologists who backed what they were doing under Exodus International.
Wow.
And it just made me think that's not that different than what we're dealing with today regarding vaccines.
Oh, interesting.
There's like this very political / religious thing of in the anti-vax movement of like, oh, da. And then there's all these scientific people that are fringe scientific people saying, take this medicine that usually deworms cows, but don't worry, it'll work for you if you get COVID.
Huh.
And so I just found that really interesting. Like that is, I almost said that's a trend, but it clearly is a cyclical thing that happens when people need people to believe a certain idea.
Yeah.
You know, they go and find the people who are willing to back it.
Yeah, it's so true. I've heard people say things along the lines of you can interpret scripture in whatever way that best suits the way that you want to live your life. You know, I've heard that before, and it just kind of makes me think of the same thing. It's like, okay, you can find somebody to agree with you, whatever your stance is, you know, scientific or not. And yeah, it just all of that just makes me so sad. It makes me really sad. And I'm curious, are you going to get the booster vaccine when it comes out?
Yeah, I think we can already get it, Kat.
Really?
Yeah, like they're saying like September or something or whatever, but I Googled it the other day and it said for like, you know, folks that are immune compromised or, you know, diabetes or whatever. I don't know. We need to do some research, but yes, I am going to get the booster shot. How about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to get it too. And I really thought that I was eligible, so much so that I went ahead and made myself an appointment and all of that. And then I thought I need to go and reread what the CDC has to say about who is immune compromised, because before it was basically like, if you're overweight, if you use a CPAP machine, if you have diabetes, if you are over 65, you know, there's all these things that qualified for being immunocompromised. And now the only things that they're listing, there's only like 4 bullet points. And it's basically like if you've had a major transplant and are taking immune suppressing medicines, or if you are in the middle of chemotherapy, or if you are in the middle of severe like radiation, you know, treatment, or it's a lot of really, really intense medical things that are under their label of immunocompromised right now. So I actually had to cancel my appointment because I even called and I was like, hey, does me having diabetes qualify? And the pharmacist said, no, not until September. So,
okay.
I did a little bit of research, which is really shocking. That's not normally my thing, but I did do it.
Well, you kept yourself from wasting time. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, time is money, man.
So by the time this episode comes out, it's going to be the end of August. Like, I don't even know what happened to the month of August. Do you feel that way too?
I really do. I feel like this month has flown by. And the day that this episode comes out is actually my mom's 70th birthday. So happy birthday, Mom.
Woo! Happy birthday, friend. Happy birthday, friend. Okay, I have to tell you, when I was talking to my friend Denise, she had a memory of your mom that I would love to share.
Oh, really? That's awesome. What was it?
She said that when you were leaving a record label that you were working for at the time, your mom reached out to a bunch of radio people. She was getting a quilt made or making it. I don't know which. And she wanted to put all the radio station T-shirts on the quilt. And she remembered that your mom had reached out and done that, and that she sent her a T-shirt.
Oh, that's so sweet. And I bet I still have it. Because we collected all of those T-shirts. And I don't remember why the quilt itself didn't get made. I think it was because it was right around the time when my dad died. And I think it just like kind of blew up our family for a really long time. And I still have every single one of those radio station T-shirts in a plastic bin in my attic, if you can believe it.
Oh, remember when I used to have a bunch of stuff in your attic?
Yes, I do remember that. You still have a bunch of stuff in my shed.
I do?
Yeah, a bunch of your company mugs that you made for Christmas a couple years ago. About 6 boxes of them.
That's incredible. I need to come get those. Sorry about that.
I use them as disposable coffee cups every morning. I just go get a new one.
$5 a pop. Great.
Yeah. Amazing. So you just were talking about some stuff that was a really long time ago, and it made me think of a question that our colleague Becky asked me today. She said, Kat, she goes, when you think visually about the calendar, what does it look like to you? And I was like, there's only one thing that the calendar looks like. It looks like this like horizontal thing moving from left to right, January, February, March, April, May, June, and then July, August, September, October, November, December. And she was like, that's not true. Like people see the calendar differently. Like some people see it vertically. Some people see it horizontally. Some people see it almost like the church calendar, like a circle. And so my question for you, Moose, is how do you see the calendar when you think of it in your mind?
What's a church circle calendar?
Like the church calendar, for example, in the Catholic Church, there are seasons, that the way that they depict visually how the seasons go, it's a big circle. So it's like the purple part is during like Advent and the
gotcha.
such and such part is during this. So it almost kind of looks like a pie graph type thing. And
Gotcha.
some people see the calendar that way.
Okay. When you said calendar, the first thing that came to mind was just like 1 month. And I picture it, like you would look at a physical calendar.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like 1, 2, 3. Okay. But if I were to picture all of the months, they would be stacked vertically straight down, north to south.
Interesting. And that's how Becky was. And that's how Becca in our office was. Like almost everyone I've asked has said the same thing, that they see it vertically.
Interesting. I never even thought of that.
And so what happens in December? You just jump all the way back up to the top to January?
Yeah. It's like a ladder.
Okay. So it's like it feels in December like what you just described August feeling like right now. It's like, where did that month even go? Because it's so far gone.
Right.
I don't know if that really made any sense.
So it kind of does. So why was that important to her?
Interesting conversation topics. Because I wondered the same thing. I was like, how in the world does this stuff come up? She goes, oh no, it's something that I thought of one time. And I ask the question all the time. And, it's just really interesting to see how people hear it. And so then we got to talking more and we asked each other the question of, when you think of God, what do you see?
That's interesting. That has changed over time for me. I think at some point, I used to think it was the old man on the hill. And then that changed when I realized that wasn't working for me. And then I think that image became Jesus for me. And now I think it feels like energy. It feels like it feels like it has a buzz about it to me, because it feels like it's sort of everywhere. I think that's what's changed for me.
That's really cool.
How about you?
Really cool. When I think of God, I kind of did something very similar to what you just did. And I kind of went through like the phases of my life, like how I viewed God. And I think early on in life, I viewed him kind of like how Jesus looks sitting at the Last Supper, in Da Vinci's painting of the Last Supper. So younger, I thought of that. And it's probably because I was raised Catholic. Like there was probably a lot of that kind of art that I saw. And as I got older, and especially as I started going through some issues with my diabetes and stuff like that, I a lot of times tried to envision Jesus being with me. And the thing/person that I saw was a person who was in a long white tunic. And it was just him in a long white tunic, and he had the long hair and the goatee or beard or whatever, like kind of a lot of pictures you see of Jesus.
Was he white or was he
No, he very like something that might look like a cross between someone from the Middle East or someone from India, like kind of that type of like darker skin. And more recently, it's really cool to hear you say how you see God, because I feel like God is everywhere, like everywhere. And it's so something that I can't comprehend, that to me, it feels almost disrespectful or dishonorable to consider that God would look like one thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's like, I really have been, trying to just see God in everything and in people.
Me too. Yes. And I think that was hard for me, even as soon as like a couple years ago, but I feel like I have sort of dismantled some ideas in my own mind without even really dismantling it. Like it just sort of fell away. And now I do feel like I have so much more love and grace for people and less judgment because I'm looking for that, I'm looking for that in other people.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it.
It's not always right. Let's be honest, but nothing ever is.
We're all doing the best we can, man.
Hey, I wanted to share this cool thing. Sarah has T-Mobile. What do you have, Kat?
I have AT&T.
Me too. So she got this message on her T-Mobile as a text that said some area codes will require 10-digit local dialing due to the code 988 being used to reach the National Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Crisis Lifeline. And I had to Google that because I didn't know that was becoming a thing. But
me either.
We got super excited about it. And we were like, oh, man, this is what people need, especially after watching that documentary. They were sharing that people who'd been through conversion therapy were twice as likely to commit suicide. And it just hit me, So I wanted to share that. If you know anyone that you might want to share that with as well, you can just Google 988 and it tells you all about it. But it basically connects you to the National Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Crisis Lifeline.
Wow, that is so awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us, Moose.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Special thanks to our producer, Sarah Reed.
To find out more, go to catandmoosepodcast.com. Cat and Moose is a BP production.